There are a lot of journalists here tonight, I think, and a lot of people who aspire to cover things like you have covered around the world. It's a lot more difficult now, I think, than it was when I was doing it and working for a big company and being paid well and having a housing allowance. And Deborah Amos told me last month that in spite of that situation, she thinks the new generation of journalists in the Middle East, American journalists, are much better prepared than our generation was. Many of them speak Arabic, they've studied the Middle East, and they're really prepared for what they're there to do.
Right.
Just it's kind of tough getting paid for it.
That's right. That's right. No, no, I mean, it's a combination, I think. I think that's probably true, that the younger generation from us is probably, much better prepared. It's a combination. I think what is so brutal about the world today for journalists is it's a combination of economics, as you mentioned. Nobody wants to pay you. But also just the war has just become so much more savage. I mean, I remember the first wars I covered were in Central America. And, at Central America, and those were brutal, nasty wars. But I remember journalists, you could cross in Salvador. You could cross from rebel-held territory to the government-held territory. You'd put tape on your car saying TV or prensa, and you could cross over no man's land. One journalist that I know of was killed doing it, but by and large you could cross over. And then you get to Bosnia in the early 90s, and journalists were doing the same thing, taping their car with TV or press, and the Serbs were targeting those cars. It was like putting a bullseye on your car. And then I feel it's just accelerated ever since then. So now you have the situation in Syria. 24, 25 journalists are now missing. Some of them I by all evidence probably dead, but a lot of them being held. And I just think it's gotten to be just really brutal. And I think one thing that people are kind of caught off guard by a little bit was the Egyptian revolution. And that was one where a lot of younger journalists today kind of cut their teeth on, and they thought that Tahrir Square was kind of what they were going to see elsewhere. And that was not the case, of course, and it wasn't the case in Libya, and it's certainly not the case in Syria today. So I just think it's gotten much more really brutal. And like you said, there is not the infrastructure behind you that is going to protect you in any way. So
I think one of the people being held in Syria was a RISC trainee, right?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think back, we used to wear these T-shirts in Beirut with the AP logo on the front, and on the back it said "Don't shoot" in English, Arabic, and French. And we could move, among all the factions without much trouble. And it really wasn't until the kidnappings started, when Terry Anderson was kidnapped in March of 1985. From then on, the whole ball game began to change.
Yeah. And I think also what's happened as war has just I just think war has gotten more savage, and what both sides in so many conflicts, what they don't want eyewitnesses to the atrocities they're committing. And so what you're seeing is to me the real eye-opening experience in my own life was Chechnya in '95. And actually, this little shock of white hair I got in 3 weeks in Chechnya. I never had, it was almost 20 years ago now, I never had a white hair before. I've never gotten one since. But it came up in 3 weeks in Chechnya. And in Chechnya, they both sides were just unspeakably brutal. If there was any, and the conversation was always about. I mean, this is the way things, where I felt things change. If you got in trouble in Salvador or Lebanon or other places prior to that, Uganda, and you think you're in a bad way, the discussion that's going on between the guys with the guns that you don't really understand is somebody is like lobbying to kill you. And what happened, what I was aware of in Chechnya was what that argument that you don't understand is. Somebody is sort of arguing that there's to try to keep you alive. So it seems almost like a semantic difference, but it's not, because the default position is we have nothing to lose and everything to gain by disappearing this person. And so what you see, and now it's spread down to relief workers. Chechnya, I think more Red Cross people were killed in Chechnya than were killed in World War II. Which is an astonishing statistic, and you see that again and again throughout the world. So I just think that there is this degeneration of where nobody is safe, and again because war has gotten just so much more brutal, you don't want to have outside eyewitnesses to what you're doing.